right, you've come to the wrong place at the wrong time, so it must be the wrong stuff. Guy Denton, how's it going?
Does the dawn of the new year mean that the Great Gazoo opening can no longer stand? It's played out.
Oh, sorry, it's been so long since we've recorded. I forgot the hello, dum-dums.
There we go.
I love that, and I'm glad that you mentioned it because at a certain point, people probably will think I'm just insulting them, and they won't realize that it was because you actually sounded like the Great Gazoo from the Flintstones and an old classic episode of The Wrong Stuff. How you been, man?
I'm doing well, Matt. It's good to see you. And I guess too that it suddenly occurs to me that we're probably coming up on a year since we started
Wow.
doing this on the regular, right? Was it in February we kicked this off, or
I just got back from a little conclave retreat in Florida, where I think 1 year ago at this same retreat, you and I hung out and possibly hatched the idea to do a podcast. Or no, I think I invited you on. That's how it started. You started just coming on my normal podcast, and then I think eventually we were like, "Hey, we should do it. We should just do this every week or two."
yeah?
So yeah, but the beginning, we're about a year out, definitely from the seminal moment when we kind of hatched the idea to do these. So happy New Year, happy anniversary.
A day that will live in infamy, truly.
That's right.
No, happy New Year to you too. And I take it you had a lot of fun down in sunny Florida, while those of us in the Mid-Atlantic were freezing and being snowed in to our sad
So
apartments.
good. I have to say, I enjoy being in South Florida better if I know the weather in DC is bad. If it's cold in DC, it actually makes it feel much better. So yeah, I cop to that.
And I'm guessing Florida was the perfect temperature too, nice and sunny, but not too suffocatingly humid or anything at this time of year.
It was nice. 70 to 79. I was there for like 3 days. One day was about 70. The last day was about 79. But we were in the pool. I got in the pool, which was nice, and had a good time. It's so good to travel. I know it's obviously a luxury, but just it just shakes your mind to go to see different things, see different people, especially if you're having meetings. I love to mix the business and pleasure, where you go to a conference, but you're not there all day. You're in that room all day. You get to also go to the beach or something for a few hours. I brought the family, so it worked out.
You know what's funny? And I say this A, to enrich the lore of this show, and B, to delay us having to talk about today's depressing news stories. You said 70 to 79 just then in reference to the temperature. Would you believe that I still can't read Fahrenheit? I have
I would.
absolutely no sense of how to calculate Fahrenheit, and my phone is still set to Celsius.
I would believe it too, because if I were you, and like if the situations were reversed, I would have no idea Celsius. So
Right.
it doesn't surprise me at all. But it was warm, but not hot. Let's just say that. But
Yes.
nice enough. It was sunny. You could get in the pool, and I did. So okay, enough with the foreplay.
Yes.
I guess we have to jump into the pool, as it were, into the deep end. Let's dive right in, as they say, and talk about the news. And let's start. So one story is Donald Trump, not president yet, but already floating some interesting controversial ideas, renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, uh, finding a way to make Canada part of the U.S., and possibly buying or seizing Greenland. So on one hand, this could be trolling, this could be good fun. Maybe these are actually good ideas, or maybe that's something to be scared of. Where are you on that spectrum?
You know, I it's interesting. Dan McLaughlin, who over at NR had a column in the Daily Mail. Time is a flat circle. I already can't remember if I read it earlier today or when it was actually published. But at some point this week, Dan had this column where he made the argument that Trump is really playing some intricate 4D chess here, and that by doing all of this, in part it's trolling, but really what he's trying to signal to America's geopolitical opponents is he's trying to reassert American dominance, and he's trying to indicate that American strength in the Western Hemisphere is about to come roaring back, and they should be afraid, and America will once again be the proud world protector, and so on. And I understand and appreciate the argument that Dan is making, but I can't help but think that even if that is the case, and Trump really is in his own distinctly Trumpy way, trying to threaten America's rivals and enemies with this, that it might be a little bit better for the incoming leader of the free world simply to say directly where he stands in relation to things like Israel and Palestine and Russia and Ukraine and China and Korea and so on, rather than indulging in these elaborate troll attempts days before he comes into office.
But I would say, Guy, he's not threatening America's rivals and enemies. It's America's allies, actually, right? That's
Well,
to me, that's part of the problem. But I do think that Baseball Crank does have a point that Trump, I think Trump thinks that like anything post World War II, like the post World War II consensus and internationalism, that's when we all got weak. And so he really harkens back to an America that was somewhat like imperialistic and not so nice. I think he buys into the it's better to be feared than loved philosophy, and not just for himself, but for America. And it is we can debate whether, I'm sure there are some positive externalities that would come from people being a little more afraid of us. But it's a big shift. It's a big sort of changing of ethos of America, of our role as a beacon of hope or schoolyard bully, take your pick. And I'm not sure. I think you and I probably appreciated that was effectively on the ballot in November. I'm not sure everyone got the memo. The normal people understood that, like, among the many choices they were actually making, this was one of them.
Right. Well, and in a way, in terms of if Trump was actually a serious individual who took and treated policy matters seriously, I would really, in a way, almost respect that, because look, I believe in a strong, globally forceful and respected United States, right? I think it is absolutely the case that America is inescapably the next in a line and in history's line of great empires, and it is the world's great empire currently. Who knows how much longer that will last for, but still, that is just a reality. And a problem and a challenge that America has really faced ever since the end of the Cold War is that America has behaved imperialistically and has acted and treated itself like an empire, but its leaders have been reluctant to actually acknowledge and simply not only admit to that fact, but embrace that fact that was how they really wanted to behave. And that's an issue. And having one foot in and one foot out on something that's significant doesn't really do anyone around the world or domestically any good. So if Trump wants to reassert Pax Americana and wants to make a return to that kind of foreign policy, then fair enough. But I don't really, fair enough. I can get behind buying Greenland, right? I don't know about you, Matt, but I'm fine by that. If he wants to try and do it, it isn't going to happen.
I'm fine with buying it. I think it'd be great to have Greenland, and I'm sure there are both military and economic rationales for doing it. But I don't think they want to sell is the problem.
No.
So then it's not buying, it's shaking down, it's stealing, it's coercing, it's invading. And I'm not saying he actually wants to do that, but one can draw their own conclusions. But Guy, you just said something that reminded me that Pat Buchanan, the man that many people see as kind of the father of Trumpism, the John the Baptist of MAGA, had a book. I think it was called "An Empire No More" or something like that, right? And the point is that a lot of Trump's supporters and the MAGA worldview has been to end these forever wars, to not be, nation building at home, don't be imperialistic. And now Trump's doing the opposite. And it's just yet another reminder of kind of the internal contradictions. I've written about this at The Hill. There's a whole bunch of them. We saw them recently where you had Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk be in favor of these H-1B visas, and then that pissed off Laura Loomer and Steve Bannon. And I think this is yet another example where, like, if you're a MAGA person, I thought I was signing up for a movement that was like against internationalism and against wars and against invasions. And like, now what is this, right? Is it just me, or does this seem to be like contradictory?
No, that's a good point. But who would have ever guessed that those sorts of issues could possibly have arisen out of a campaign that made no effort to put forward an actual clear and coherent policy agenda, right? On any subject, not just foreign policy and foreign affairs. So this is the natural consequence. And if this is the sort of incoherent back and forth chaos that's going to define a second Trump presidency, then Trump is going to quickly be rebuked by the American people who were so eager to put him back in office after the Biden year.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is a party or a movement that's full of, born again evangelical Christians and Matt Gaetz and Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump, right? This is a party that loves McDonald's and yet also loves RFK Jr., a guy who wants to like end trans fats and processed foods and seed oil. This is a party that is the party of the American farmer and yet wants to impose tariffs that would result in farmers losing a ton of money. So look, I'm all for, I love debates and ideas and arguments. But often these are hashed out during elections.
Right.
So the voters actually kind of know that there's a mandate to do this or not do that. And to your point, Guy, I don't think that we've actually had these discussions. I don't know that people knew they were voting to take Greenland,
This is what Jim Jordan and his ilk and those sorts of representatives would refer to as a beer and blue jeans, salt of the earth party of the working man, right? But wants to drain the swamp and hates the Washington and East Coast elite, and yet its uber rich leader just moved yet its uber rich leader owns one of the tallest buildings in New York and just moved the Washington branch of his hotel into the building that was previously occupied by the Waldorf Astoria. So,
wait, Jim Jordan said something like that?
I remember years ago hearing Jim Jordan say something like that. That the new Republican. People can fact check me, I guess, but that the new Republican.
Whether Jim Jordan said it or not, it's true. I mean, it's like
yes. Jim Jordan said, I remember, that the Republican Party's current model should be to be the beer and blue jeans working man.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The rest of it, it was me illustrating the contradiction there of a party that decries the elites, and yet it is led by one of the most elite people on planet Earth. Never mind just within the United States.
I haven't been doing as much punditry lately, and my punditry muscles have atrophied. So I might have missed, your wording there, but point well taken. Now, Guy, I want to ask you, because I am spending time figuring out how in the hell I'm going to cover the next 4 years of Donald Trump. And one thing I think we've very clearly learned is that hand wringing about fascism and liberal democracy didn't move the voters, at least not this time. It might have worked in the past and it might work in the future, but in 2024, the voters really weren't responding to like hand wringing and pearl clutching about protecting democracy from this kind of, would-be strongman and his authoritarian tendencies. And so, I don't want to be hysterical by the same, and I think there could be good things that will come from a Trump administration. And I don't want to, so even though I have serious concerns about him, as you know, I don't want to reflexively oppose everything that he wants to do, because there's different reasons to, to oppose things, but I don't want to just knee jerk oppose them just because he's for them, right? And so as I go through this, um, I don't think it matters if we call it the Gulf of America or the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not concerned about that one. Orwellian language. I know that words do matter, but unless someone persuades me, maybe is there a reason? You tell me, guy. Do you know? Is there a reason I should like? Is this a hill to die on or a gulf to die on? Like, is it
I'm
worth defending the Gulf of Mexico as a term?
I'm sure some people would tell you that it is, but symbolically renaming it the Gulf of America would be a grim indictment of America's imperial and uh, colonial heritage and so on. But no, but the Howard Zinn types, I'm sure, would make that claim. But no, I agree with you. It's not something that terribly exercises me one way or the other.
And then, if Canada and Greenland wanted to be a part of America, I would welcome that. I think there could be some good things that may come from that. I don't think we should force them to do it, and that's but I do want to say I don't think it's not like we haven't done things like this in the past. I mean,
Right.
I think I'm using the royal we, but political journalists and whatever were guilty of a recency bias. And I think Theodore Roosevelt would probably say, I'm not going to use the P word, but Trump's a wimp. I would have taken Canada years ago. You know what I mean? Like Theodore Roosevelt, a guy on Mount Rushmore, I suspect would be down with a lot of this stuff. And so it's not like what Trump's doing is anti-American in this regard. There is a fine American tradition of being imperialistic, all right?
No, entirely.
I just feel like the consensus has certainly been in the last 100 years or so that it's not a great look. And, it undermines our message, right? If America is certainly during the Cold War, when we were going up against the Soviets, it was nice to be able to juxtapose our values against theirs.
I mean, no, entirely. That kind of rabid expansionism has very much defined this country's history, and the imagery associated with it is ingrained in the national ethos and imagination that animates this country still, right? Entirely. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt is a great example. Just a couple of others that pop into my head. I mean, Truman wanted to buy Greenland, right? He was in favor of it. Nearly annexed Mexico under James K. Polk. So making Canada the 53rd state, I think is entirely in keeping with American traditions and the manner in which America became such a dominant and in many ways a dominant power, and also a fascinating and rich country too. However, on the Canada point, I mean, this is just hysterical on so many levels, because if this is not simply an elaborate piece of trolling on Trump's part, and if there is even a grain of seriousness to it, I mean, it's easy to make fun of it and say that it's ridiculous, but it actually does raise a lot of the interesting and very complicated and intricate legal questions, diplomatic questions. What would taking control of Canada and integrating Canada into the United States actually look like, right? Canada's a parliamentary system. It's a constitutional monarchy. It's composed of provinces. It has its own constitution and its own rich legal heritage and constitutional history and constitutional legal framework. And taking all of that over, it's at least a fun thought experiment to consider. Maybe I can even give Trump the benefit of the doubt on that.
And what would be interesting is how it would be incorporated. I mean, if it were broken into multiple states, many of those states would be very liberal, very progressive. Yes. And that, now I doubt if that would happen. It would be like one big state perhaps, or a territory or something. But look, we're obviously probably getting ahead of ourselves here. This probably isn't going to happen. But I do believe that words matter. And that a president's words matter a lot. And so whether it's trolling or not, I think it's promiscuous use of language is is a serious thing. And look, I'll just be honest with you, Guy. I feel like we crossed the election this past November was crossing the Rubicon. People knew exactly what they were getting with Trump.
Right.
He told them. He didn't hide it. He promised retribution. He said a lot of crazy things. This whole thing with Greenland and Canada and all, like, it's not out of keeping with him. And the American public voted for this. And I feel like that was it. I'm not going to get too worked up over anything. Obviously, I care about America. Obviously, I'll continue to advocate for policies and things that I believe in and try to push back where I think things are bad and wrong. But for my own personal sanity and my own mental state, I feel like it was November. That was when we had a chance, and we made the choice. This is a choice. Decline is a choice, as Charles Krauthammer used to say. And we made the choice. And so we're on the ride. You get on the roller coaster ride. You can't get off in the middle. And we're at that stage now where it's starting to, it's slowly going up the hill and it's starting to teeter and we're about to come flying down the hill. But there will be highs and lows. And I do think there may be some good things that come from this. And I fear there'll be some bad things as well.
No, I was actually about to make a similar kind of point, albeit I would have placed more of an emphasis on the optimism at the end there. I think all we can do is be optimistic. We should be optimistic. We should hope that this presidency will result in some actual policy victories, not just for the sort of conservatism that you and I believe in, Matt, but just for the country in general, right? And for many of the national ailments that have been afflicting this country for some time now, that hopefully some of these challenges we can at least move toward overcoming them over the next 4 years. But no, to your first point, just the tone that we're striking and talking about this, and I know that we're flippant on this show and that's what we try and do, but to actually, the fact that we're talking so casually about, the president's just trolling again. The president's talking about annexing Canada. What can you do? There he goes again. 10 years ago, I think we would have treated that with a little bit more concern and a little bit over what it represented about the state.
Any little thing. Like if Mitt Romney or John McCain had done 0.1% or said 0.1% what Trump said, the media would have gone crazy and they would have been pushed off the ticket. And that's part of the point Trump is making, is that I have to fight this way. I have to flood the zone. I have to create this chaos and this trolling because this is how I'm going to distract them with Greenland. And then we're going to do this thing that we really want to do. And like, I feel like the ramifications or the fallout from playing that game do not justify the benefits of playing that game. But I understand that it's a game. And there are people who feel like the media and the left have invited this, and that this is turnabout's fair play, and you fight with fire, and that's what he's up to here.
And Trump was a warrior in 2016 against normality. And now, in being re-elected, the irony is he's established his own normality, right? This sort of behavior and the way we're forced to react to it and analyze it simply is part and parcel of normal political life now. And who knows what will happen in the next 4 years? Hopefully, we'll move beyond it. Hopefully, we'll recover a lot of the respectability and a lot of what has been lost throughout the Trump years. But who knows what will happen? I think to your point, absolutely, who knows what the permanent ramifications of this, politically speaking, will be, especially when you consider that, for the generation below mine, children who are growing up in this era, people who've grown up over the last decade, this is all they know, right? This to them is just politics.
Well, even if you're 30 years old, which isn't that young, if you're 30 years old, you have become acculturated that this is normal, that this is what politics is. This is what a president looks like. This is how a president acts. This is normalized. Absolutely.
But on
The
the
world
brighter
is
side, plenty of material for you and I. So
yeah. Well, and the problem is the fear that the world is on fire, but it's not just the world. Los Angeles, man. Have you seen these insane videos and pictures? I have a friend named Jessica who's you know, been a supporter of my podcasts out in LA, sending me videos and pictures. It's crazy what is happening out there.
it may be a new year, Matt, but your transitions are as impeccable as ever. But no, I have seen it. In fact, earlier, 2 nights ago, I had a fit of insomnia. I couldn't really sleep, and so I was looking at the New York Times on my phone. And I'd been busy during the day. I'd missed that this was a story and that this was unfolding. And I was watching the videos and reading through the coverage just in absolute horror and disbelief at what is happening in Los Angeles. It is,
Yeah.
incredible, astonishing for all the wrong reasons, in the most negative sense of both of those terms. And it isn't even just that it would be one thing. Obviously, a tragedy like this, the gravity of it should never be taken lightly. But it would be one thing if this was happening in some rural part of the state, and if only a minority of people had been affected by it. But this is a couple of miles away from Hollywood, from downtown LA, and the chaos that's been unfolding, the way that people's lives and businesses and communities have been ravaged by this, and what it's going to mean long term, and how in many ways it could even end up reshaping the state and the politics and political ecosystem and cultural ecosystem of California. It's shocking and terrifying to behold.
Really is. Our thoughts and prayers are with those folks out there. And even if you're safe, I have to imagine that and by the way, Jessica showed me a video even from her backyard. You could see in the distance this crazy fire. I have to imagine for people, even if they're out of harm's way, they're gonna have, I don't know if you remember a year, I guess it was a few years ago during COVID, if you went outside, there was also this smoke and stuff from these Canadian wildfires that was
Yes.
polluting our air here and made it kind of hard to breathe. I'm sure it wasn't terribly healthy for you. I assume that is happening all over Southern California and other parts of the state now too, or even if you're not in physical danger of the fire, that is just going to be horrific. But yeah, some of the videos and pictures coming out of there, insane. And it just, happened like that too. Not much of a warning.
And I don't know if you saw the any of the videos of firefighters had to tell people to evacuate their cars because the roads out of the Hollywood Hills and out of the area Santa Monica and the areas where this was happening in to get onto the main arteries are so narrow and so limited that people were having to just abandon their cars and flee on foot, and then firefighters were having to bulldoze through the lines of abandoned cars to actually get to the flames and try and combat them. I mean, just the thought of being in that situation, of having to flee with your family and knowing that whatever happens next, everything that you knew won't be there for you to come back to when this is all resolved. It's like something out of some apocalyptic disaster movie, and it's terrifying. And I think the question for when this is finally over is whether what sort of policy mistakes could have perhaps amplified this, and what can perhaps be done from a
Yeah.
policy perspective to ensure greater management and greater containment of something like this so that it doesn't happen again on this scale.
Yeah, the mayor of LA apparently was like in Africa or something. That is not going over well. I saw that I think it was Donald Trump and Elon Musk have been attacking Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. I'm not sure, who's right. I mean, it's pretty seems likely to me that there are policy decisions that could have maybe prevented or mitigated some of this. By the same token, it may be as simple as we're building more houses in places that are prone to fire and to natural disasters. Some people say it's global warming, climate change. I'm not sure. And I also don't know if it's appropriate to attack a political adversary during a crisis like this, but hopefully there will be lessons learned and some takeaways.
And to that point, regardless of whether policy could have mitigated it or not, it's a grim reminder of the power of the natural world and how this sort of thing can happen so unexpectedly and can produce such such severe consequences, right? I mean, if you think of something like the Northridge earthquake or other major natural disasters in California's history that happen in an instant, and for so many people can have such a fundamental effect on their lives and of everything they know and of the makeup of the state more broadly speaking. It's again, it's incredible to behold in a very tragic sense.
I feel like today's so serious. I long for the days of cricket and and the gravel pit.
Dog owners don't long for the days of cricket. I think they're glad we've moved beyond that.
Yeah, there were people who thought we were flippant, but I think that was our arguably. I think we needed like a Pulitzer Prize for that. For podcasting, a Pulitzer Prize for podcasting for that episode.
I was going to say that was our All the President's Men. That should
Yeah.
be. They should make a movie about that and preserve
That's
it in the Library of
You
Congress.
just hang your balls out there, man. That's what we did in that episode. Just like cricket. Okay. Was cricket a boy or a girl? I don't remember.
It was a boy, I think. I don't remember either.
All right. Last topic, but amazingly, perhaps also grim. The death of Jimmy Carter.
Oh, yes.
I mean, on one hand, it's like there's a scene in the movie Fletch where, Fletch goes undercover. He's trying to find something out. And so he goes to the doctor and he says, he's talking about someone who died. And he says it was so sudden. And the doctor's like, well, he was dying of cancer for 3 years. And Chevy Chase says, yes, but the very end was sudden. And similarly with Jimmy Carter, he was in like hospice care for a year or two, and he was like, in his 90s or something. So we kind of saw this coming, and yet still a big deal, still shocking. And it was interesting just today to see like the norms where you're watching TV and there's like Donald Trump sitting next to Barack Obama, sitting next to George Bush, sitting next to Bill Clinton. And, I wonder how long that's going to last. But anyway, what did you make of this and maybe the Carter legacy?
Truly our next Mount Rushmore right there. Those four presidents together, what could be a more natural combination? I think, on the one, leaving politics out of it, right? Carter, to your point, lived to be 100, lived a very full...
Was he 100? Did he hit 100?
I think he was.
Okay.
I could be mistaken. He was definitely in his late 90s, right?
He was definitely getting up there.
And lived a very full, very accomplished life and a distinctly American life too. And that's something to very much be appreciated and respected and considered when in retaining our gratitude for this country and for the systems present in this country and for everything that this country can afford people. I mean, Jimmy Carter took advantage of all of that, and you may disagree with a lot of what the man did and what he stood for, but he took it to its fullest, to its full amplitude, right? And he lived an incredible life as a result. Politically, I doubt that either of us would really rank Carter in our presidential top 10 or anything like that. But I mean, really, the fact that this has happened now, I mean, the parallels between Carter's presidency and Biden's presidency are inescapable. The fact that Carter was elected on a promise of restoring sanity and stability and respectability, both to the Oval Office and to the country at large, and to repairing American divisions, and then ultimately was out of his depth and unable to deliver, and consequently...
And he had inflation, crime...
Yes.
That kind of thing, yeah.
And his flailing presidency emboldened the right and emboldened the Republican Party.
Oh, hostages. That's another thing, right? Another parallel.
Exactly, and emboldened the right to deliver its own kind of purported restoration, right? But I mean, the difference is Carter also had the remainder of his life after his presidency to reestablish a very successful public image as a humanitarian and as an intelligent, an image of humanitarianism and diplomacy and advocacy of peace and order and so on, which Joe Biden will not get that same opportunity. So I think, say what you will about Carter's life. It was certainly a rich life and will be a fascinating life to study in many senses.
He also gave back the Panama Canal, which is an issue that's becoming relevant again as Donald Trump, I forgot to mention, also wants to take the Panama Canal. It's unclear how. I don't think we should have given it back to begin with. But once we gave it back, right? So, it's sort of like Wheel of Fortune. Once you win a prize, it's yours to keep, or whatever the Pat Sajak line used to be. Dating myself here. But yeah, he will be missed. He will be missed. And we'll give Trump some credit here. I thought his statement upon the death of Jimmy Carter was, whoever wrote that did a good job, and it was respectful and appropriate. So kudos. All right.
Was there a no backseas clause written into the agreement? That's what the people demand to know, Matt.
Good one. Good one. All right. Well, you've done it again. You've wasted another perfectly good 40-some minutes. I don't know, 30-some minutes of your life.
So did we, in fairness.
I'm out of practice, but it's cold gin time somewhere. And if you drive us wild, we promise to drive you crazy. We have a money-back guarantee on that, Guy Denton. Did you have fun? Was it good to get, welcome back, Carter, is what we may call this one. Was it good to get back together?
That would be good, yes. Back in the swing of things, truly. But no, it's good to be back with you, Matt. It's good to be in the new year. Hopefully we can make it a great year for ourselves personally, for the country, and also for this show and all of our cherished listeners. So it's a lot of fun to be back with you. It's good to be back.
We will keep on podcasting till they shut us down, which could happen in the year 2025. We'll see how things go. Guy Denton, always a pleasure, man. We'll see you next time around.
Take it easy, Matt.
If you like what you heard here today, please make sure to follow the show, subscribe to the show, leave a like, review the show wherever you get your podcast, and also please smash that like button, or whatever the people my age are saying. I don't know. I am a Kiss fan after all. But nonetheless, you can also follow us on X at WrongStuffPod, or drop us a note. Fawning praise or scornful disdain, we accept both, at the Wrong Stuff Pod, all one word, at gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. We're looking forward to next time.